For our daily cancellation, we head back to history class, a subject that kids learn every year in public school, which means that they never really learn the subject at all, of course. It falls then to others. Sometimes it even falls to podcasters without a college degree to pick up the slack. That's what I tried to do over the weekend and then on my show on Monday as we discussed the issue of slavery. No need to rehash all of my points. My primary goal was to communicate the fact that the story of slavery is much larger, much deeper, much wider ranging than the version they tell in schools and the media and Hollywood. As I observed, white people were slaves also. Millions of them were, in fact. The trade in white slaves, especially in North Africa, but even in North America, was big business. It's a fact, an important one. But not everybody agreed. Which isn't to say that they disagreed with the facts that I was sharing. You can't disagree with facts. You can either choose to acknowledge them or not. But facts don't care about your feelings or your acknowledgement, it turns out. No, the critics disagreed not with the indisputable facts about slavery that I discussed, but rather with the fact that I was discussing them. They felt that it was horrible, Nazi-esque, it was racist, white supremacist to even hint that there might be more to the slavery issue than the white enslavement of black Africans in the West from the 17th to 19th centuries. As mentioned on the show on Monday, the critics were mostly on the left, but not solely. Maj Toure, who's a well-known gun rights activist, was quite vigorous and relentless in his criticism. He said that my statements about slavery were dumb, reductive, counterproductive, horrible, retarded, his word, and many other things. He said that I was damaging the inroads that conservatives had made with the black community. And he continued in this vein in many tweets and videos railing against me for mentioning that white people were slaves. So finally on Monday, he appeared on my friend Jason Whitlock's show on The Blaze to further explain his point of view. I watched the segment, and I have to tell you that after listening to him, if anything, I understand his criticisms less than I did before. So let's go through this together. Listen.
First, I did like What is a Woman? I think Matt is usually spot on certain things. It's similar to a lot of conservatives. I'm very critical. It's almost like if we're going into the tactic room, right? What does this actually prove? I just did an interview and, we discussed, a guy said, well, what would be wrong with All Lives Matter? And I'm like, well, there's nothing technically wrong with it. If you thought that, you should have said it before BLM said Black Lives Matter. It's just what it is. And everybody knows I don't really bang with BLM as an organization, but the phrase and the reductive component.
Well, this is perhaps beside the point, but for the record, lots of us were saying all lives matter before BLM came along. That was and still is the central motto of the pro-life movement. We didn't steal it from them, they stole it from us. We didn't start saying all lives matter when BLM came along. We kept saying it. We were told, though, that we had to stop saying it because somehow left-wing black activists were the only ones allowed to decide and declare which lives mattered. But even if we had started saying it only after BLM was formed, so what? It's still true. And besides, this is meant to be a response and corrective to BLM militants who, in fact, as is obvious, do not believe that all lives matter. The BLM movement is a black supremacist movement, and that's why All Lives Matter was and still is a necessary rejoinder to it. By the way, Maj is the founder of an organization called Black Guns Matter. He sells T-shirts with the phrase on it. So, Maj, were you saying Black Guns Matter before Black Lives Matter came along? Something tells me that you weren't. Yet you can use the BLM slogan to sell shirts and advocate for gun rights, but we can't use it to advocate for the fundamental worth and value of human life in general? It's reductive for us to say all lives matter, but not for you to say black guns matter? Interesting. Let's continue.
And let me be clear. If we're trying to make inroads into black communities, these types of takes that have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, well, I gotta stop you there again very briefly. We'll back up and play the whole clip. But he says, my take had nothing to do with anything. Well, that's not true. I mean, it had something to do with history, with truth, with the facts of the world that shaped human civilization. It had something to do with the racial grievance industry, which trades on the idea that slavery in America was a unique and unprecedented evil, when in fact it was not. It was an evil, but not unique or unprecedented. It had something to do with lots of different things. It had something to do with a book that I read and I wanted to talk about. It had something to do with what happened to be on my mind at that moment. All of these are perfectly fine rationales for sharing my thoughts. The criticism that Maj is offering here is by far the most useless, boring, and exhausting form of criticism, and also perhaps the most common on the internet. That's why I find it so irritating. This is the, why are you talking about this? Why talk about this and not something else? I don't care about this. Why are you discussing it? It's that whole routine. It's a totally worthless critique. It really is. Just because you don't find a subject important or relevant or worthy of consideration doesn't mean that nobody should ever talk about it. I don't have to explain to you why I want to discuss something. I don't have to seek your permission ahead of time. If you don't care about the subject or find it important, then keep moving, keep scrolling. No one's forcing you to participate in a conversation that you apparently find so unworthy of your attention. It just would never, I'd never do this to people. I never go to someone else's page or listen to their podcast or whatever and then say, why are you talking about this? Why this and not this other thing over here? It's just, the criticism makes no sense. Bad school season is upon us, and while many American kids are excited to get back into the classroom, many others are not, because these children, they don't know where their meals will be coming from this semester. That's why Good Ranchers has made it their mission to donate 100,000 high-quality meals to kids facing food insecurity and malnourishment this fall semester. For every box ordered through the month of August, Good Ranchers will donate a nutritious meal to a child in need. Help them reach their goal of 100,000 donated meals by ordering your box today at goodranchers.com/Matt. Good Ranchers is an award-winning food delivery service that ships 100% American meat and seafood right to your door. They're named the best food subscription service. That's what they were named earlier this year, and you could tell why if you become a subscriber. Good Ranchers is the fastest growing meat company in America. They source only the best American farms so that you can trust that you're feeding your family with the highest possible quality every single meal. Plus, right now, you can use my code MATT to get $30 off your first order, plus free shipping. Your purchase furthers its mission to donate 100,000 high-quality meals to children in need. This is a great cause that we should all rally behind. Go to goodranchers.com/Matt today. Use my code MATT when you place your order, and let's help these guys hit their goal. So we're not off to a good start, but let's continue.
These types of takes that have nothing to do with anything kind of like just gives extreme leftists more of a tool to utilize against us. And what I mean by that is, if I'm a person in the middle, let's say I'm a Democrat and I'm not the extreme lefty, I think a lot of these guys are making moves that are reactionary to what extreme lefties do. That doesn't advance conservative movements to people that may be in the middle in a democratic city. So we say a thing and then an extreme leftist packages it and says, see, they're minimizing your ability or the history of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, Matt may have not been trying to do that. I'm talking about from a tactical and strategic standpoint. The left dominates urban and Black America because they understand PR and messaging way better than the right does. Simple and plain. They have to because they don't have many facts. Sorry, they just don't. So they have to be very good at smoke and mirrors and lying in PR, because that's what a lot of public relations or perception and reality is. This, and I think maybe Matt's following maybe took it a little too, they got a little sensitive about it, but it's always one step in the right direction with a lot of conservatives. And then we say something that makes the job of my job a lot more difficult, because it's like, damn, that sounds like you trying to downplay the role. And that's what every extreme leftist is going to do. And so from a strategic and tactical standpoint, this does not spread conservative values or make the job better. We keep going with this facts don't care about your feelings concept. And how has that been working out for us by not expressing any type of empathy first?
Well, it's worked out pretty well, actually. Thank you for asking. Refusing to be emotionally blackmailed by dishonest, manipulative cry bullies has been a tremendously successful approach. It's one of the reasons why the guy who coined that phrase is one of the most influential thinkers in the country, and the company he co-founded is making inroads into the culture in ways that nobody else on the right ever has, certainly including our friend Maj. But let's back it up a bit. Maj accuses me of being reactionary, right? Reacting to the left. And yet, his entire critique centers around the left and how he thinks we should react to it. Well, we can't say that. The radical left will use it against us. He suggests that the Black community will be easily duped by the dishonest talking points of the left, and so that we should calibrate our approach accordingly. He does allow generously that perhaps I wasn't trying to minimize the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe I wasn't. But he says that the left will accuse me of doing that. So let me see if I have this right. You're worried that the left will accuse me of something dishonestly? And so your strategy is to head them off at the pass and accuse me of it first? Now, Maj, you're a smart guy. I know that you're not dumb enough to believe that I was minimizing the slave trade, or indeed that any rational person would ever do that. Suggesting that I even might have tried to minimize the slave trade by talking about other forms of slavery, it's like suggesting that I might be minimizing kidney cancer by talking about lung cancer. It's an incoherent, ridiculous, fundamentally dishonest accusation, and you know it. Everybody understands that slavery in America was a terrible evil. Nobody suggests otherwise. Everybody agrees that it was bad, which is all the more reason why perhaps at this point it might be time to expand the conversation to talk about the forms of slavery that lots of people don't even know existed. We talk about slavery all the time in America, the American form of slavery. Kids learn about it. They make movies about it. Activists scream about it. It is a constant, ever-present historical reality. Nobody has forgotten it. Nobody could ever forget it. Everyone knows that it happened, and everyone agrees that it was unspeakably evil and it should not have happened. Everybody. Everybody. Okay. Which is good, right? It's good that everybody knows it happened and everyone thinks it's bad. Success on that subject. Should that be the end of the slavery conversation, or might we, at this juncture, widen the lens a little bit to try to get a look at the fuller picture? Now, it seems that you would prefer that we keep the lens narrow. And rather than admitting that your preference is your preference, you try to farm it off to the radical left, claiming that you're only telling me what they will say. And sure, yeah, the left does say that any discussion of historical atrocities not centered around the plight of Black Africans in America is inherently racist. They do say that, and they're wrong. You're saying it too, and you are also wrong. Now, you talk about tactics and strategy. You use the word interchangeably like they mean the same thing. They don't. Strategy is your overall approach to the war. Tactics are the maneuvers, the individual steps, specific actions that you take in service to that strategy. I'm not splitting hairs here. I mean, the difference is actually important because you say that we should avoid certain uncomfortable truths strategically and also tactically. But which is it? Is this our strategy? Is our strategy to abandon the truth, cede the entire historical and racial narrative to the left in hopes of outflanking them to their left? If so, then sure. I mean, only talking about slavery or racial injustices in terms that the left demands is a good tactic. But it's a tactic and a strategy that loses the war. It is a surrender. See, my goal, my strategy, and my tactic are actually all the same for me. Because I'm a simple man. So for me, it's the truth. I just say what is true. If I say something and it's not true, if I inadvertently say something I'm incorrect about what I'm saying, and you have a counter argument that proves that it's incorrect, then I will listen. And if you can convince me that it was incorrect, then I'll change my point of view. But if you admit that I'm saying the truth, and you still criticize me for saying it, well, I'm just not interested in that critique. I'm really not. If one person is saying the truth, and the other person doesn't want to hear the truth, whatever their reason, the problem lies entirely 100% with the latter. So you say, well, what about all the people who don't want to hear about this? That's their problem. That's not my problem. There is something wrong with them that they don't want to hear a truth. And in this case, they don't want to hear a truth about the way the entire world worked for thousands of years. That's their problem, not mine. As for me, I think what our culture lacks most of all is not empathy. It's not feeling. It's not pity or patronizing pats on the head, but truth. And anyone who stands against truth or insists that the truth be muffled or silenced or withheld is today, I'm afraid to say, Maj, canceled. If you want to join my exclusive fan base or a cult, as really that's what it is, we're forming a cult, then all you got to do is click the subscribe button and ring the bell below this video to stay up to date with all my content. And if you want even more, you can watch or listen to my show at thedailywire.com, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Looking forward to welcoming you to the Sweet Baby Gang.